Development Summit 2026 officially open.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I now have the honor of inviting Her Royal Highness Princess Sonam Decheng Wangchuck, a Bhutanese princess and a legal scholar who has played a pioneering role in the development of legal education and jurisprudence in Bhutan. As the founding president of the Jingye Wangchuck School of Law, or JSW Law, she established Bhutan's first and only law school, a landmark institution in the country's transition to a constitutional democracy. Your Royal Highness.
Your Excellency, President Horta, Prime Minister Bushmal, Kailash, Ji, Sumita, Peter, Aurelia, distinguished laureates, excellencies, scientists and scholars, young people of Timor-Leste, it is a profound honor to be here in Dili. I thank President Horta and the people of Timor-Leste for your gracious welcome, and I bring with me the warm greetings of His Majesty the King, Her Majesty the Queen, His Majesty the Fourth Drukgyalpo, and the people of Bhutan. I also extend my warm greetings to Prime Minister Shanana Gushmal, whose enduring service to the people of Timor-Leste continue to contribute to the nation's journey of development and prosperity. And it is precisely this journey from independence to development that makes our gathering so meaningful today. President Horta, your life has demonstrated that a nation does not need great size or material power to make a lasting contribution to the world. Through diplomacy, dialogue, and an unwavering commitment to peace, you have shown that peace is built not only by ending conflict, but through justice, solidarity, and reconciliation. Today, as Timor-Leste takes its place as ASEAN's newest member, it brings the region the energy of a young nation and the wisdom of a people who have secured the future through remarkable perseverance. Bhutan and Timor-Leste are separated by mountains and seas and shaped by very different histories. Yet we share something very important, the understanding that the future must be shaped with courage, imagination, and a spirit of partnership. That is why this gathering matters. The challenges before us do not respect borders. Climate change, technological disruption, inequality, food and energy security, public health, and artificial intelligence will shape lives everywhere. Science will be central to how we meet them. But science does not exist apart from society. Knowledge acquires meaning through what we choose to do with it. The question that has been at the heart of Bhutan's development journey for nearly 5 decades is, what is development ultimately for? It is part of the enduring wisdom of His Majesty the Fourth King, Jigme Singye Wanchur, who guided Bhutan through a period of profound change. At a time when progress was increasingly measured in economic terms, His Majesty asked a more fundamental question: what should development make possible for a human being? Gross national happiness emerged from that question. It was never simply an alternative measure. It was a different way of thinking about development itself. That prosperity is meaningful when it strengthens human well-being, communities, culture, good governance, and the natural environment. That philosophy has shaped Bhutan's choices for generations. Long before climate change became the defining global concern it is today, Bhutan made conservation a national responsibility. Our constitution requires that at least 60% of our country remain under forest cover for all time. Today, Bhutan's forests remain largely intact and provide a net carbon sink. His Majesty, the present King, Jigme Kesar Namgyal Wangchuk, has carried this philosophy into a new era, one in which we must engage confidently with technology, innovation, enterprise, and the global economy, while remaining conscious of what we are trying to preserve and what we are trying to achieve. One expression of this vision is the Gelipu Mindfulness City, a new experiment in bringing together spirituality, health, education, finance, technology, tourism, and the creative economy across more than 2,600 square kilometers. But its significance is deeper, and the question is what it seeks to explore. Can technology advance without becoming disconnected from human well-being? Can an economy be globally competitive while remaining rooted in culture and community? Can innovation work with nature rather than against it? These are no longer questions for Bhutan alone. They are questions for every society and will be increasingly difficult to answer. The pandemic in Bhutan gave a powerful demonstration of the connection between knowledge and human action. Science gave the world vaccines, but science alone could not deliver them to the people. Under His Majesty the King's leadership, thousands of health workers helped vaccinate 90% of Bhutan's eligible population within 1 week. What made this possible was science joined with public trust, capable institutions, community participation, and a deep sense of responsibility for one another. That relationship between knowledge and human life becomes even more important as scientific capability expands. We are now entering a period in which artificial intelligence, biotechnology, climate science, and new forms of energy are expanding the boundaries of what is possible. The question is no longer only what science can do, but what we choose to do with what science makes possible. The questions are: who will benefit? Who might be left behind? What will our choices ask of the earth? These questions belong at the beginning of discovery, not after it. They belong in the laboratory and the remote clinic and in the data set of the farmer's field. They ask us to design technology that includes rather than excludes, and to ensure that those who have the least are not an afterthought in the systems that will shape the future. They also ask us to look again at how we measure progress. Patents, productivity, scale, and profit matter, but so do healthier lives, knowledge shared across borders, ecosystems restored, inequality reduced, and human dignity protected. These are not softer measures of progress. They tell us whether progress serves its purpose. Somewhere, a child we will never meet will live with the consequences of the choices we make today. That child may grow up beside a snow-fed river in Bhutan or near the Timor Sea. They may never know the names of the people whose discoveries shaped their lives, and their health, education, livelihood, and the environment they inherit may depend on decisions that are being made now. Perhaps that is why the purpose of science matters so deeply. Knowledge gives us possibility. Our values will determine what we do with it. The measure of progress is not only what we create, but the quality of lives that follow. So let us carry this from Dili. Scientific ambition and human responsibility must advance together. And perhaps this question is worthy carrying forward in Dili. What kind of future is really worthy of our children? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Your Royal Highness. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our formal opening. Throughout the day, guests will be engaging in a range of parallel programs graciously organized by our universities, government partners, and other participating institutions. For all of our guests, please also note the structure of the day. The morning session will continue through until lunch, after which a lunch will be very kindly provided by the Office of the Vice Prime Minister, Coordinating Minister of Economic Affairs and Minister of Tourism and Environment, His Excellency Mr. Francisco Calboadilai, for all our guests. Conference engagements will then be resumed at 2 p.m. sharp. And now, we will begin with our first keynote address of the summit. Our first speaker is Kailash Satyarthi, recipient of 2014 Nobel Peace Prize, internationally recognized for his work to protect the rights and dignity of children. Mr. Satyarthi will address the theme, What Progress Can Look Like in LDCs. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Kailash Satyarthi.
Good morning. Your Excellency, Honorable President Jose Ramesh Hortaji, who is my biggest strength as elder brother, guide and friend. Your Excellency, Prime Minister, Your Royal Highness, Princess Sonam Dechan Vanchuk ji, you always brings energy in the organizations, in your nation, and among many families, including mine. Distinguished officers and leaders of the government, dear fellow Nobel laureates, sisters and brothers. I am supposed to speak on this topic, how the progress in least developing countries look like. I have visited East Timor a couple of times before, and I am here since yesterday with my wife Sumedha. So I think that what else could be more appropriate place to talk about how does the progress in a LDC country looks like. Everybody knows that how Timor-Leste has gone through occupation, violence, conflicts, ethnical violence, poverty, and suffering. But everybody could be proud that you have chosen resilience over revenge. You have chosen peace over violence. You have chosen hope over fear, nation building over destruction, and fraternity over divide. And that's why when yesterday President Horta was referring that there's no incident of political or ethnical violence in this country. This is how the progress looks like in any developing country or any low-income country or any least developed country. Today he was talking about biodiversity. You have chosen to protect Mother Earth, planet, over the destruction and climate challenge. And now this whole summit is also a choice that you have chosen science for development, not for hunger of power and profit and destruction and devastation, and many countries have chosen. Science has been misused for destruction in the history. And today a country says that science for development. And that's why many of the most prominent scientists are sitting here. It is not just, today I would also like to take the opportunity to mention with a sense of joy and pride, another country, Bhutan, small country. Small country can choose a big dream and chase that dream with resilience, self-confidence, pride, and conviction. That has been proven by the monastery of Bhutan, and that began with the fourth king and her father. His ministry many years ago, many decades ago. And their success lies, they have chosen a different path. Instead of talking about GDP, Bhutan introduced happiness index, national happiness. And the happiness was not just an abstract for them. Happiness combined several things. The well-being for the people, protection of culture, cultural diversities, and ecology, and so many other things. And one can go there and see that how people are accomplished and happy. These are the examples that how we have to redefine the progress. The normal understanding is that only the economic growth can be the engine of human progress. But here are the countries who are redefining that, unleashing the social potential, and human development can be the engine of economic growth. And they can go hand in hand. And that is slowly going to happen. There are 44, if I'm not wrong, 44 countries known as least developed countries. And 14% population live in those countries. But their contribution in global GDP is little more than 1.4%. But that is not something to be blamed to them. There are several reasons which I talk later. But when you think of these least development or the low income, this is not just the data, hunger, or unemployment, or illiteracy, poverty, and so on. Once I was visiting Ivory Coast. This is one of the biggest producer of cocoa beans, which is used for chocolate. I've traveled there several times and worked to help finding the solution of child labor and ensuring education for children in that country. And I met a group of children. And just to comfort them, I asked a question that, my dear children, how do you like chocolate? And I felt ashamed when none of them ever heard or tasted chocolate in their life. I visited several places, and many of those children were trafficked from the neighboring countries, Togo, Mali, Benin. They are all least developed countries. They are producing taste for the world, the chocolate taste. They are bringing joy and happiness in the lives of all of the people who can afford chocolate. But they never tasted chocolate. I was sitting with a group of children in Sierra Leone once, and some mothers carrying malnourished children. And a mother was crying that for several days she could not feed her 1-year-old child, and the child was about 5 kilograms. That child can die any moment. and that lady was crying. And the lady told me that she had worked for hours and hours in a mine, granite mine. I've spoken to some of those children in GRC, in Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC. And as you know, that Congo is the largest producer of cobalt. And cobalt is the core ingredient which we use, the world uses as a green energy source used in the batteries of electric vehicles. And these children are going into the mines in dangerous situations, facing health hazards. They are not responsible for that. These countries are not responsible for their poverty and perpetual poverty. This is the collective responsibility of all of us, of the world. When we talk of these countries, they are not simply numbers. When we talk of these children, they are not simply numbers. They are living human beings. And here comes the sense of global moral responsibility, moral accountability. The leadership in wealthier countries as well as in developing countries, the need of moral compass to lead that can bring this sense of responsibility together. These are the situations. World is not so poor. Many of us know that the world spends 30 times more money in armies and arms, in so-called defense, every year. 30 times more money than what is needed to end hunger. So 1/30 of the wealth which is used for wars and insurgencies and arms and militaries, that can feed all hunger people of the world and end hunger. This is 28 times more than what is needed to ensure quality education for every child in the world. Some years ago, we as the group of Nobel laureates, what we call the laureates and leaders for children, have come out with a report on the importance and necessity of social protection. And one part of the report revealed that only $53 billion additional can ensure or can end the sufferings of many people, children. It is enough for education, healthcare, and protection of all children in developing countries, all children, including low-income countries, least developed countries. Now the number might have gone to $70 billion additional because of pandemic. So it's not a big deal. I think we have to address this issue in both directions. An introspection by the leadership and the nations which are categorized as least developed, as well as the wealthier nations who made promise time and again through sustainable development goals, through social development goals, and so many other things in global development agenda in economic spheres. When it comes to low-income countries or least developed countries, it's a matter of priority. political priorities, policy priorities, social priority, economic priority, financing priority, budgetary allocation. I think on the top of it is healthcare, because healthy child is a fast learner. Then comes to education. Let me tell you that many of the low-income countries spend more percentage of their GDP on education and healthcare than most of the developed nations. But because of the weak economies, their percentage spending does not suffice, is not enough to ensure good quality education and bring all children to education and ensure health care for everyone. So we cannot question their intention. They want to do whatever they have, they are doing. And here comes the responsibility of the rich nation. So prioritize the human development that also includes security, social protection. Secondly, employment generation. The progress would also look like good progress, sustainable development, sustainable progress, if we are able to ensure employment. So education should lead to good employment, and that should be appropriated with local technology as well as the use of technology which is available in the world. And here comes the role of engineers, scientists, technologists. So technology, not just for profit, but technology for the human development. And that is something that should be the priority. And that is a collective responsibility, I underlining again. And there is another important issue. Pride. Even the countries who are suffering, who are having serious deficits in many things, they could be put in the categories of low income or least developed. But the people in that country should have pride that they can do it. Yesterday, when the girls were dancing, the youngest girls, 2 or 3, look at their face, the pride for their nation. They go to school and free time, after some time they go to presidential library. And that confidence, that courage, that pride comes through all the collective efforts of government, presidents, and all of you. And these things are important. And if the people have pride, and if the governments really make them aware of these things and then engage them, invite them to participate in the progress of the nation, as well as slowly make them honor. So awareness should grow to engagement, participation, and ownership in the end of the day in making this country. That is very, very important. And then it comes to the mirror. We have to show mirror to the wealthier nations. When SDG, I was the part of the discussions and deliberations and many things in SDGs. Goal 17. Goal 17 is a promise that no country will be left behind, no nation will be left behind because of paucity of the funds for development, sustainable development. But how many countries are really putting or fulfilling that promise? Unfortunately, it is not happening. And that is the reason, one of the biggest reasons that world cannot attain any of these sustainable goals by 2030. Some indicators would be achieved and could be achieved, but that is not enough. And when we talk of the indicators of SDGs, they are only 18%, hardly 18%, which are on track, but not the goals. We have already failed our children because there was a very clear goal to end child labor, slavery, trafficking by 2025. That goalpost has gone. So we have to introspect as well as we have to show mirror that why these countries have not been able to fulfill the promises. Many, many years ago, some decades ago, the promise was made that 0.7% of GNP, their national income, annual income, that will go for ODA, or Overseas Development Aid. But is it not a matter of shame, I would say, that hardly 0.15 to 0.2% instead of 0.7% has been allocated or disbursed for development activities in the low-income countries or poorer countries. These things have to be considered, and we can definitely bring about change. But I would again reiterate here that what is needed is a sense of moral responsibility, global moral responsibility, sense of moral accountability. Those children whom I was referring to, those women whom I was referring to in those countries, they are suffering. They are paying the price for your development of the big companies and wealthy nations. But they are still living in poverty, intergenerational poverty and miseries. Whose children are they? Whose children are they? They are my children. They are your children. They are our children. They are the present and they are the future of humankind. So please invest on them. The investors will not be doing a mercy or a pity or a charity to the developing countries. If they invest in developing countries, the result would be much, much better in terms of economic return, but in terms of human potential return, many more times. And they will gain more. If they look only for profit, then the profit would also be more. If the children in these countries are educated today, if they are made healthy today, then the return in the world economy would be much larger than one can think of. So investors and the wealthy nations must invest in their support for sustainable development to achieve sustainable development goals. Dear friends, these things need compassion. Compassion not as charity, not as kind emotion, not as a sentiment, but we have to build policies on the basis of compassion, technology on basis of compassion. And compassion means mindful problem solving. Compassion means feeling the problems of others as your own problems and take urgent action, mindful action to solve the problems of others as you solve your own problem. That is compassion. We have globalized markets and economies. We have globalized data. We have globalized technology. We have already entered in the unprecedented and unknown world of artificial intelligence. That is good for humanity. But the philosophical question and the human question is that who will control whom in the end of the day? Machines should not control the human mind. Humans should control the machine and use for development and betterment and justice and equality and peace and sustainability of the world. We have globalized everything. I call upon you, my dear friends, let us globalize compassion. Let us globalize compassion. Let us globalize compassion. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Satyarthi, for those important reflections and for beginning our discussions today with such powerful perspective on human development and progress. We will now move directly into our first panel discussions, Science in Service of Development. This session considers the role of that science can play not simply in advancing knowledge, but in addressing practical development challenges and improving people's lives. We are privileged to be joined by Professor Frances Arnold, recipient of 2018 Nobel Prize in Chemistry, and Professor Brian Smith, recipient of 2011 Nobel Prize in Physics. Moderating this session is Dr. Elder da Costa, Secretary General of the G7+, with extensive experience in development economics, agriculture, and development policy. I now invite Dr. Elder da Costa and our distinguished panelists to begin the discussion.
Thank you. Excellency, Mr. President, Excellency Prime Minister, members of the government, Nobel laureates, distinguished scholars, scientists, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. It's my great privilege and honor to moderate this session with our two distinguished panelists, Professor Arnold Frances and Professor Brian Smith, two renowned scientists, Nobel Prize laureates, and they are here to share their perspective under the theme of Science for Development. But first of all, allow me just to quickly introduce myself, as it's been introduced by the moderator. I'm looking after the group of 7+, which comprise of 20 countries around the world, ranging from the Pacific, Asia, Middle East, Africa, and the Caribbean. Out of these 44 countries that are categorized under the LDC, as explained by our Nobel Peace Laureate, Mr. Kailash, approximately 20 of them, or half of them, are members of the G7+. And the very classic example that the Nobel Peace Laureate explained in West Africa, in Cote d'Ivoire, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Democratic Republic of Congo, all of them are members of the G7+. So in that context, allow me to quickly move on to the session that we are about to start. As we only have 1 hour allocated to this session, and we are already 25 minutes behind the schedule, and I'll try to compensate that 25 minutes to compensate the time allocated to us. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce quickly Professor Frances Arnold is the Linus Pauling Professor of Chemical Engineering, Bioengineering, and Biochemistry at Caltech in the United States. And she is now the director of the Donna and Benjamin Rosen Bioengineering Center in the United States. She pioneered directed evolution to design enzymes with useful properties, an extraordinary scientific breakthrough that earned her the 2018 Nobel Prize in Chemistry. Let's give a round of applause. And the next panelist is Professor Brian Smith. He's an astronomer at the Australian National University and former Vice Chancellor of ANU in Canberra. He led the High Z supernova search team, whose observations proved that the expansion of the universe is accelerating, a monumental discovery in modern cosmology that earned him the 2011 Nobel Prize in Physics. Give a big round of applause, please. Ladies and gentlemen, let me briefly outline what the format look like. We'll hear each speaker about 7 minutes in their opening remarks, and then I'll follow up with a few questions to both of you, and then we'll open the floor for the questions and answer. So without further ado, let's hear the open remarks from our panelists, beginning with Professor, who would like to start? Professor Francis Arnold, if you don't mind, to start with, followed by Professor Brian Smith. The floor is yours, please. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, please welcome the intervention, please. 7 minutes, please. Yeah.
I'll take less than 7 minutes because, first of all, I want to bring you greetings from the people of California, another, I would say, island nation in the United States, where science is indeed recognized as important for human well-being. And I want to thank President Ramos Horta, Prime Minister Guzman, and Princess of Bhutan for your wonderful speeches. And especially I was moved by the princess's talk, because I think that you said very eloquently and described very eloquently what I think personally science should bring to people. Because without people, science has no meaning. This is what many of us forget, that science is a human endeavor done for joy, done for curiosity, and also done for development. Now, as you heard, I'm an engineer by training. I have degrees in mechanical engineering and chemical engineering, but I was lucky enough to begin my career, and this is for the students, in an institution where there were no boundaries for inquiry. And one could develop science in any personal way. There was not a route to follow. You could follow your own ideas to develop science. And that meant that I could bring what I love best, the chemistry of the biological world, into the realm of engineering. Keep in mind, this was 40 years ago when we were just cutting and pasting DNA for the very first time and making new forms of life. And I felt that we should be able to basically breed enzymes, like you breed cats and dogs and corn and rice. We would be able to breed biology to serve humans, as we have done for thousands of years. And that would allow us to use biological solutions, natural solutions, clean, renewable resources to make what we need in our daily lives. I was lucky enough to be able to work for 35 years on that, winning a Nobel Prize for the advances made by my research group. When in 2020, I was called by President Biden to ask me to serve as co-chair of his Council of Advisors on Science and Technology. And I'll just remind you to think back where you were in 2020. It was a terrible time. We were in the midst of a pandemic that was ravaging the entire world. We were home, we were frightened. My mother died in a nursing home. And even though I had no experience in government, I said, yes, of course, I will do that. I will do that service. And I spent 4 years in the White House as an advisor to the president. And I'll tell you more about that. But I felt that it was our goal, it was our responsibility as scientists to provide information and advice, science fact-based advice, to the government, which may or may not use that advice, right? But that it was our responsibility to provide that aid and assistance to government in their decision-making process. And I stepped down in 2025 and I'm back in science. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Francis. Now, let's move on to Professor Brian Smith with your open remarks, please. Thank you. Please.
Thank you. It is great to be back in Timor-Leste, and I thank Timorese people for inviting me back. Your Royal Highness, I look forward to visiting you in Bhutan in a couple of years, which is on my agenda now. To Prime Minister, to the President, thank you once again for hosting and for being an outstanding neighbor of Australia. And my hope is maybe we'll be a little bit better neighbor in return in the future. So I had the luxury of being in Timor-Leste in 2013 and 2016. And I have seen in my short time here a profound transition and advancement of this country that may not be so obvious to even the young people in the room. It is a very different place than when I came in 2013. And people are thriving in a way that I didn't see so much back then. Doesn't mean there is not lots and lots to do. And the summit is to talk a little bit about some of the next steps. Even with the advancements of the first 24 years of independence, we still see that the very basics here need to still be thought through. Education is almost impossible to overinvest in. I mean, I think Kailash talked about how much you need to invest in it just to get to the very minimum. And I think that's still true for Timor-Leste. That you really want education to be something that every girl and boy, no matter where they are in the country, sees as something they can get through to year 12. And you have technology to help you because the ability to provide high quality education with digital help is actually easier now than it ever has been. You can leapfrog some of the Western systems that are in place. But even to get to education, we still need to address the fact that not every Timorese child is getting the nutrition they need to start off with life, and those first 5 to 10 years probably is going to be the basis of where science can help society, bringing in, and we have a number of people here who are experts in food security and really thinking about how that food security is brought to every single person. The average Timorese, I understand, is 22 years old. It's one of the youngest countries in the world. So the investments made now are what set up the country for the next 50 years. And so as we think through the investment in science can only make sense with that investment in health and in education going forward. Finally, I think it's worthwhile reflecting of the importance to allow science to work for you, the importance and stability of governance. That is one of the secrets that Timor has on its side, and thanks to the two gentlemen out here in front. We have a country where government is largely trusted. And I cannot emphasize how important that is to allow the education and the science to work and provide the development that we are seeing here. There's no secret special thing about how science picking a winner here. It's creating an environment where every single Timorese knows that if they work hard, study, as most of the leaders emphasized, that they will have the chance to fulfill their ambitions based on their effort, their hard work, and not who their mom or dad is. And that is really the foundations to success. And then we can talk about, maybe in the question time, of how we layer on higher education and other systems to make it successful once you get the base in place. Thank you.
Thank you very much, honorable panelists, for your inspirational remarks. I could take away the common feature from both speakers, investing in basic education, health, and science for the benefit of the people. Yeah? Those are the key pointers that coming out from prominently from our two speakers. Now, before I offer the floor to the audience, let me ask a simple question to each of you. Professor Arnold, you mentioned that you invest heavily in the people, otherwise science will be meaningless, right? And the fact that President Biden invited you to be his advisor, that's exactly what it means. Now, in the context of Timor-Leste, if you're sitting here, you look at our two policy makers, the President and the Prime Minister. We have a Minister of Education here. We have a Minister of Higher Education. Basically, all the policy makers of this country are here. What would be your policy advice in terms of science in the area of the specialized area that you focus on? And how can Timor-Leste follow your advice if you have one advice to make, please? And the same question applies to Professor Brian. Once the basic infrastructure, the necessary condition for peace and development is already secured, what is the level, the next level of development that we should invest? So I'll start with you, Professor Francis, please.
Well, of course, I'm not in a position to give advice to the experts here. I can only speak from my heart and my own experience, which is that of a grandmother. I had a grandson born during the pandemic, and it reminded me that we have collectively a responsibility not just to the children, but to the planet. We have a beautiful natural environment, and you're very rich in that here, which I hope that we will be able to pass on in better condition. This shared home, as Pope Francis said, we have a shared home across the world. We share an atmosphere, we share the oceans, and it's our responsibility to pass that on to future generations. Well, of course, providing for our population, providing the best possible lives. And I particularly like the idea of the global happiness index, because we don't take that into consideration. With the degradation of the natural environment that happens in my country, full of resources, we don't count so many things that affect our lives. So I'm very glad to hear that is part of your calculations and your process. So my only plea would be to treasure what you have and try to do better with what you're learning how to do.
Thank you. Let's give another big round of applause, please. Yeah. Thank you. Professor Brian, what perspective would you offer to this country, please?
Yeah, we have a whole bunch of people who can be able to go into detail here. I guess my reflection is that you start layering where you need to focus. So we are going through a world that is going to have massive technological change, and I think it's pretty clear that whether or not you're in Pasadena or you're in Canberra, there's going to be disruption to advanced economies. To a developing economy, you have a little bit of almost an advantage to sit back and watch and see what's going on, but you know you have some things right now you need to work on. Agriculture, clearly food production is something that is key to Timor going forward, no matter what happens. We're going to hear there's genuine shortages of agricultural production on the horizon. You want to be able to deal with that yourself. Great place. Energy. Every country has energy. You don't need to worry about having coal-fired power plants that are going out. You can leapfrog into the next generation. You have great solar resources and wind resources here. With battery technology, energy is going to be a place that seems pretty clear to me. And then we talked about the environment. The environment is something that is yours. It's a very unique environment here, but it is also, by understanding and looking after it, opens up tourism and all sorts of other things, which would almost certainly serve the people well. So those are three examples of how I would think about the problem. You, the Timorese, will know what really is important to you, but work on things that are important to you.
Well, actually, let me comment on that. AGI, artificial general intelligence, if that happens, then we'll all be free to travel. And the most beautiful places will attract the wealthy tourists who will make the economy good. So hopefully AI will drive.
We'll see, but I am worried, and maybe Torsten will be able to tell us a little bit about the AI bit. But there's not a lot of information about Timor for AI to learn about, so you may have to spend some time educating it. We'll see.
Fascinating. Thank you very much for this small interaction. Right, for the young people who are sitting in the back here, my question will be relevant to you. Professor Francis and Professor Brian, in your inspiring fields, especially you in astronomy, or also Professor Francis in bioengineering, what ingredients can you advise our young students here in order to invest in? What could you advise them? Looking at mentor, the scientists like you sitting here in your specialized field, and who knows, it will trigger the dreams bigger in the future. So can you please give one small little practical example that could inspire them in this session? Thank you. Please.
Want to start? All right. What I always tell people is figure out something you care about. When you choose something to do, you need to care about it. And it's only if you care about it, you will do it well. And the job is not to do what everyone else is doing, but to do what you care about that other people aren't doing. Do it well and convince the rest of the world that it's interesting. That, I think, is the secret of success of a scientist.
Thank you. Professor Arnold?
Well, of course, we've been lucky enough to have the opportunity to do what we find most interesting. Not everyone has that chance. But I think that going after a Nobel Prize is not a practical goal. It's not a goal that a scientist should have, because very few people actually win a Nobel Prize. Many deserve it and don't get it. But it shouldn't be the goal. The goal should be the joy of learning about your world, your universe. It should be the curiosity that gets completed when knowledge happens. Knowledge is like money in the bank. That's how I think about it. You put it away, and that knowledge will become useful later on. So early in your lives, just learn what you can, and you will find what you love to do with that knowledge, with that money in the bank.
Thank you. Now, basta limang bait niya, Painak. Obrigado. My last question to each of you. Let's move on to the substance of your work. We all are here, apart from the scientists, research, they understand better the work you do, but especially Professor Brian, you proved in your Nobel Prize in Physics that the expansion of the universe is accelerating, a monumental discovery in modern cosmology that earned you the Nobel Prize. Can you please explain to us in a simple language what does it mean the universe is accelerating for us people, for lay people like us to understand, please? Thank you.
Yeah, so cosmology has been at the center of human thought and reflection, and it is what ultimately triggered the scientific revolution back in the 1600s. For me, I was trying to ask a very basic question. Will the universe live forever, or will it die? And that question makes sense because since 1929, we've realized that the universe is expanding. When we look out and we see galaxies, every galaxy is moving away from every other galaxy, and the further they're away from us, the faster they're moving apart. And that makes sense if you take the universe and you just puff it up with a bunch of little dots in it that all get further and further away from each other as you puff it up. So what we did is we looked back in time, because light travels at 300,000 kilometers per second, which is very fast around the Earth and very slow around the universe. So we were able to look at objects billions of years in the past, and we could look at how fast the universe was expanding in the past and compare it to the present. And when we did that, I wanted to see, was it slowing down a little bit or was it slowing down a lot? Gravity, as our understanding of Einstein's theories of gravity, said the universe slows down faster the more stuff that's in it. So we made that measurement, and the universe wasn't slowing down at all. It was speeding up. It was accelerating. And it turns out Einstein had that sorted out. He said, well, okay, if the universe is not made up of stuff like you and me, but it's primarily made out of just energy that's part of space itself, so in you, in me, in Francis, everywhere, always the same, that makes gravity push rather than pull. So our measurement said that the universe was 70% this stuff we now call dark energy. That was our discovery.
So are we worried for the future or no?
Well, it turns out that our discovery says that the universe will continue to expand faster and faster, and eventually our galaxy, the Milky Way, will merge with the nearest galaxies where gravity is strong, but then every other galaxy in the future will be so far away, we will no longer be to see it. So if we're here in our galaxy, living our own lives, it's okay. The average person in Timor-Leste does not care. As a cosmologist, I'm going to have nothing to do in 100 billion years. So it's really, really bad for cosmology.
Thank you so much, Professor Ryan. The same question applies to you, Professor Harder, please. Just tell us a little bit in 1 minute, in a simple language.
I'm lucky in that what I study as an engineer is also equally interesting to people, because not only do we wonder where did the universe start and where is it going, we wonder where do we start and where are we going? Where did the natural world come from? How did this incredible biodiversity come from? I studied that process called evolution, and that process is the most powerful engineering design process ever invented. It works at all scales, from molecules to ecosystems. Everything in the biological world was made by a simple process of mutation and natural selection. To give all this incredible chemistry, biology, and by recognizing that that process is something that we could actually do in the laboratory, to make new chemistry, new biology, then we could learn how to breed molecules, like to breed cats and dogs. And it turns out to be really useful. So I think that's why I won the Nobel Prize, because 1,000 laboratories used this simple algorithmic process that we demonstrated to create enzymes. These are the catalysts of life, to solve problems, everything from manufacturing pharmaceuticals to making better laundry detergents. There's thousands and thousands of products that incorporate biological catalysts. And they do it cleanly. We can make sustainable aviation fuel from natural resources rather than oil. We can make pharmaceuticals much more cheaply and without pollution. So this process is something that now we're understanding. The evolution has not stopped, right? Tomorrow there will be new chemistry in the biological world, but today there's new chemistry in my laboratory.
Thank you so much. Well, now let's move to the session on Q&A. So I now have the honor of opening up the floor to our participants to raise some questions. So in order to make our time more effectively, I'd like to open the floor for 3 people first, and then we'll see how it goes. So from here, left, center, and right, please raise your hand. and identify your name and institution or affiliation that you belong to, and then raise the question to whom you would like to raise the question to, yeah? So the floor is yours.
President,
Who?
Prime Minister.
Prime Minister? Yes. Oh, sorry. Because the light is a bit contrast, I couldn't see you properly. Yeah. Please, go ahead. Yeah.
Madame Francie, oh, do you listen? Do you hear me?
Yeah.
You are talking about chemistry, etc., biologic, etc. I believe that in the universities, as you mentioned, you both mentioned, please raise this problem. You know, we are a very small country. When we talk about agriculture, we talk about food. I believe that you understand we cannot compete with the big countries, because if we produce 1 kilo, they produce 1 ton. That is why when you teach in the universities, when you teach how to study this, how to have this, please, I would appeal to the universities to tell the young people not to go to a more commercialized thinking, because we, in 2009, it was a food crisis in the world. We bought rice from one country. It was cheap. It was very good to give to our people to buy. Years later, somebody told us not to buy again from that country because of the chemistry gave them the possibility to produce, instead of 10 tons in a hectare, they produce 20, but the product was unhealthy. That is why we are considering science service of development. Yes. Please, in this, like from COVID, we got vaccine from many countries, and some Timorese, few, they are still having problems with the bad vaccine. That is why, please, it is just to remind the teachers, just to remind the researchers, not to go to the economic side of the bad, because we say healthcare, etc. For the kids, as Mr. Kaishala is looking at WhatsApp. He's reading the WhatsApp from, you talk about children, about this, about education, about this. And what I recommend is, when in the universities, when they teach how to take advantage of the science, don't never forget health. Better to have an organic, small, little, but an organic food than boom, products to export and nobody will buy. And in the country, many people will get very unhealthy situation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister, for the commentary. So I'll leave this to you.
Just to comment on that, what you're saying is exactly what I was trying to say, that science should be for people, and scientists should think about what is the impact on people of the products that they make. Unfortunately, science gets translated through a long process of commercialization where the scientist doesn't have control over that process. And so the government plays a very big role there, right, in regulation of the kinds of products that reach your people.
And I would just say that part of what I think the universities need to do is understand what their role in society is. And part of it is ethics and responsibility. And the translation normally does not happen in universities. It happens outside of universities. And you want the translation to not be in your university because it will corrupt the university and probably won't do a very good job of it as well. And I say that having run a university. So you want the ideas there, you want to have an ethical basis into the people, and then you want the ideas to go out that make sense for the country, and that's part of the government of regulation, is making sure the translation is the good side, because everything has good and bad, I'm sorry to say. There's no easy good only anymore.
Thank you for both answers to the comment of the Prime Minister. Thank you. Now, we still have approximately 15 minutes or so. So in terms of time management, yes.
I'll just say, I brought little pins from Caltech, so any student who asks a question, I'll give you a little pin from my laboratory.
There you go. There's a challenge there. Okay, students, it's your time. It works in the tempo. Por favor, usa pergunta se agora se for pin in the what? Who's the Caltech? Sorry, Prime Minister? Yes, please. Please come forward. Where is the mic? Yeah. Please identify yourself and which faculty or institution you're coming from, please.
I cannot tell you how rare a Caltech pin is. There's only 900 students from around the world who get in there, 300 a year. So they're rare.
Estudantes, al favor, sus preguntas, Ruma. Oh, sorry, there are items. Please, go ahead.
Hello, good morning, everyone. First of all, my name is Giovanna. I recently graduated from Sophia University in Japan. My background is engineering and applied sciences, where my research focused on hybrid renewable energy. But my question is to Professor Arnold. And currently I'm working at the Office of Vice Prime Minister to Mr. Asanami. And my question is that, Professor Arnold, your work on directed evolution demonstrates the importance of creating conditions where unexpected and valuable solutions can emerge. In developing countries, we also have talented young people, but unequal access to education, research environments, and mentorship can prevent that talent from reaching its potential. From your experience, what kind of ecosystem should we build to allow scientific talent to develop and create solutions locally, rather than having our brightest minds and technologies come primarily from developed countries? That is my question. Thank you.
Well, you are probably more of an expert on that than I am, having done it yourself, going to Japan. I personally think that mixing ideas is incredibly important, right? You're a small country, limited resources. It's very difficult to build an ecosystem of scientific inquiry that is captured in a small place. Whereas if you go out and you travel to other countries, you get ideas that you would never have in a small place. So I would respond that what you are doing is actually wonderful. And at some point, you will come back and you will create that environment that you experience, the good parts of that environment. You will create that here, I hope.
And I just echo that science is very global. So ANU, 54% of the faculty at ANU are from around the world. And I bet you Caltech is even more so, yeah. So that is the normal way things work. And it's not always a one-way street, right? People will come here because it's an interesting place, an amazing environment to work on interesting problems. And that's one of the ways to build up your capability is by bringing the best people in the world to help you. And the way you get them to here is to go visit them and then bring them home. So I think it's a great part of an ecosystem that you have to have patience with, but it does pay off in the long term.
Knowledge is global. And now with communications that we have, AI, you have access to knowledge here in Timor that you would not have 20 years ago. So you can start asking questions, but the travel to other places lets you be surrounded by people who can help you answer those questions.
Thank you. And later on, comes and see Professor Arnold to get the pin from her, right? Thank you. Thank you for the panelists. I'm still challenged for this on my left-hand side here. Any students who would like to raise any questions? Since we have time, we still have time, approximately 10 minutes to go. Yes, please. Come forward.
Hello, my name is Kaushik Srivatsan. I'm studying first year MBBS in the Medical College of Unpas. So I'm an Indian student, I'm studying here, and my question is to Mrs. Arnold. So my question is, you are talking about the commercialization.
Slow down, it's hard for me.
Oh, sorry. You're talking about the commercialization of the products made by the people. What do you think the scientists' role on that?
So it's about commercialization, and what was the last point?
What do you think the scientists the person who's inventing can do to help that?
So what, sorry.
The mic is a bit,
Yeah, I'm just
You have to
talking.
speak very slowly.
Oh, sorry. I'm just saying, what can scientists do to prevent the commercialization so that we can make sure the people are getting the product?
I just can't hear it.
yes, I can hear properly.
The role of the scientist who's inventing and coming up with new things in the commercialization and making sure commercialization is beneficial to the people. Great question.
All right, thank you.
It's all, everyone does it differently. I happen, because I was trained as an engineer, I'm deeply interested in the actual, if it's useful, that means people use it, right? It can't be useful if people don't use it. So I'm interested in developing technology that's useful to people. And the best way to make it useful is to push it along that commercialization route. I don't do that myself because I have limited capabilities. I'm not a good CEO. I don't want to be a CEO. I don't want to have to worry about the finances, which you have to do when you commercialize. But I work with people who are interested in that. And what I find is that many of the students who come to Caltech and invent new technologies are deeply interested in carrying that technology out into the world. So in California, of course, we have an extremely powerful ecosystem of financing for young companies. So it's relatively easy if you have a good idea to obtain sufficient financing to demonstrate the idea. And then, of course, the market takes over at some point. But that first initial part of financing is what I think makes the United States so powerful in technology innovation. Because if you, a student at a university, have a good idea and you can convince someone that it's a good idea, you can get enough money to demonstrate that commercialization. That's irreplaceable.
And I would say in here, a big challenge will be to figure out how to make that capital available. And it's not about just giving money out. You got to be very smart and say, if I give the money to you, are you going to make a bunch of money for Timor-Leste or not? And so governments really struggle with handing money out because they don't have skin in the game. So it's a big challenge of how to do that. But it would be something, as we get more sophisticated here, hopefully it will emerge.
Thank you. Now, we still have 5 more minutes to go. Last opportunity for one of the students to ask question. Sorry. Yes. Yes, I'd also like to give another opportunity for gentlemen out there to also raise question. Let's start with the student first, please, and then comes to you, Sir Manuel. Yeah, please.
Hello, my name is Virson Manuel Guzman Martin Zamora. I'm currently working as an intern in IMP, which is the National Authority of Petroleum, and I just graduated from Australia La Trobe University. And I have 3 questions for Ms. Arnold and Mr. Smith. The first one for Mrs. Smith is, if you could point the next generation of telescopes at one unanswered question about the universe, what would it be? And for Ms. Arnold, I have 2 questions about, do you see directed evolution enzymes playing a real role in reducing emissions from industrial or energy processes? And also, another question, this is not really science related, but what was it like being an episode of Big Bang Theory?
Thank you for the excellent question. Save it for later. Next, Manuel Pereira, please. Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you. My name is Luis Nevio. I work at the National Commission for UNESCO. It's my pleasure to meet, the second time to meet Professor Brian. I apply, with my team, we apply a fund to International Astronomical Union to organize some workshop for the teachers, about 100 teachers attending the workshop last 2024. So basically, it was inspired by the solar eclipse in 2023. So we try how to engage more students and teachers to understand the scientific phenomena in Timor or globally. So my question to you, how is your perspective? How can astronomy education contribute not only to science, but also broader science and economic development in Timor-Leste? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for those 2 questions. Professor Arnold and Professor Brian, please respond properly here.
All right, so I'll take off the 2 astronomy ones, and I'm going to say, I sort of got invited to the Big Bang Theory, but I never managed to get across the Pacific, so it didn't happen. So instead they talked about our thing, but.
Well, I'll tell you, people have heard about the Nobel Prize. Many more people know about the Big Bang.
Indeed. Anyway, Sheldon didn't like Saul Perlmutter, who also won the prize with me. If I could look at one thing right now, there are these new things that are essentially giant black holes that were formed right after the Big Bang. They're literally black hole suns. We called them little red dots. That is what I would spend my time looking at, but everyone else in the world is looking at them right now. They are a huge mystery. Why did these things somehow get formed right after the Big Bang? Complete mystery. These are things 1,000,000 times bigger than our sun. So that's what I do. For astronomy, all right, so astronomy for somewhere like Timor-Leste, it's a way to get kids to become aware of science and thinking about science and our place and how you can use thought to understand hard things. So it's a gateway for learning. Now, in an advanced economy like Australia, we turn out lots of spin-outs and things, but the reality is that's a long ways away from what would happen here in Timor. So I think it's more of a gateway here for future knowledge. That would be my sense.
So everybody in the world, as far as I know, watches the Big Bang Theory. And it turned out after I won the Nobel Prize, I was asked to go down the street, it's right next to Caltech in Burbank Studios, very close to my house, to appear on this television show that I didn't watch myself. And I was very glad I did it. For those 3 people on the planet who've never watched the Big Bang Theory, it's about enduring graduate students at Caltech in physics who go on to become wannabe Nobel laureates, and they're starting after 12 seasons to lobby for Nobel Prizes. So it's a good thing the show is over, because it's great. But I was the first and only woman to play herself as a scientist in all 12 seasons. So it's about time that they figured out how to do that.
Thank you so much, our panelists. That has brought us. I still want to ask question. Okay, as a moderator, I can only allow one last question, please. Last. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Felipe da Costa. I'm currently working with FAO. I work on the food system transformation in Timor-Leste. So my question will be relevant to what my area of working. Actually, in Timor, as the summit says, the theme there is science in service for development. So I would like to also ask your advice relevant to our current problem. Stunting, malnutrition, stunting is the highest problem in Timor-Leste. So for the Professor Francis, maybe you can advise us how can we solve this problem. For example, we are right now working on a legislation to fortify food, but there is still debate between whether it should be voluntary or it should be enforced. So what is your best advice on that? And for the Professor Brian, for example, maybe with your area of research, we need more food, we need more productivity, we have challenge in climate change. So in area of your research, what can you advise us for to increase our productivity? That's all. Thank you very much.
Please, piece of advice.
I'll just answer very quickly. You are the experts on this. And what I learned in the White House, especially after our experience with COVID, but also with food, we have too much food. And people do not like to be told what to eat. So we have a problem between trust in government and trying to do what's best for people. And that is for the government to decide and not for the scientists. We can only give you advice based on scientific facts, but there's so much more sociology that goes into these things that you are the ones who will have to decide that.
Yeah, and I'm just, everything Francis said, we also have some experts here that we're going to be hearing from who are world experts on food. But in the end, you can bring a horse to water, but you got to get the horse to drink. And if you really, really like ramen noodles and not vegetables, it's hard. And this is a big problem in the United States where people are poorly, have poor nutrition in the United States despite it having, overproducing food by a huge amount.
Fantastic. Please, ladies and gentlemen, a final round of applause to our 2 panelists. With that note, I thank all of you, your participation, especially to our distinguished panelists, Professor Arnold and Professor Brian, for their insights, your time, your vision that you have shared with us today. It has been fascinating listening to your explanation in a very simple language to the lay people like us here in this hall. So once again, on behalf of the moderator, I'd like to express a sincere gratitude for your time and for your remarks, which has been very illuminating. Thank you so much once again, and thank you for your participation. Enjoy the rest of the summit for today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Elder Acosta. And also, please join me in thanking Professor Francis Arnold and Professor Brian Smith for an excellent discussion. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we'll now go on our coffee break. 10 minutes only. We'll continue with our next panel discussion at 11:25. Ita se na iha coffee break lalaisit ba 10 minutos, afuin si continua quedas, hoita niña discussão panel turmai. Bali estudantes ir, al favor, itamos iha equipamento para tradução simultâneo, al favor, ita belusa. For all our VIPs and also international guests, please help yourself. The coffee break is at the back of this stage. Itani café intervalo, ba VIP será me convida que eles belhakat ba ia salão rekoto. Bom proveito. We'll see you shortly in 10 minutes time.